Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Monuments Man. Today we will be covering the 5th Massachusetts Battery. The 5th Battery was mustered into service on December 10, 1861, in Lynnfield and Reedville, Massachusetts. They fought in numerous engagements, including the Siege of Yorktown, the 7 Days Battles, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg, Mine Run, the Overland Campaign, and the Siege of Petersburg. They have two monuments, one in Excelsior Field on the north side of Sickles Avenue, and a bronze position marker on the west side of Hancock Avenue. The battery was commanded by Captain Charles Phillips. Charles Appleton Phillips was born on January 31st, 1841, in Salem, Massachusetts. He'd previously been a law student at Harvard. However, when the war broke out, he quickly put aside his law career and at the age of 20 was commissioned a second lieutenant in the 5th Massachusetts Battery on December 3, 1861. Despite being the youngest officer of the battery, he was known to have no qualms about exposing himself to enemy fire to lead the unit. In fact, his performance at the Battle of Gaines' Mill would earn him a promotion to first lieutenant and subsequent command of the battery. Phillips served with the 5th for the entirety of the war, from the Siege of Yorktown to the Battle of Five Forks, and was actually discharged after the rest of the battery in July of 1865, while the 5th had been mustered out in June. He was given the rank of Brevet Major of U.S. Volunteers. Phillips would return to his law practice after the war. He would not continue his practice for very long, however, for on March 17, 1876, he came down with a congestive illness and would die 3 days later at the age of 35. The battery arrived on the field at 10:30 along with Lieutenant Colonel Freeman McGilvery and 9 other batteries of the artillery reserve. They were 104 men strong and brought 6 3-inch ordnance rifles to the field. Their first major action of the day was to bombard Joseph Kershaw's South Carolina Brigade, which was then advancing into the Wheatfield. Soon after, they were repositioned to support Captain George Randolph's 3rd Corps Artillery Brigade. They advanced to the Trossel Farm, and upon catching up to Captain John Bigelow's 9th Massachusetts Battery, they immediately targeted the guns of Captain Henry Cabell's Artillery Battalion. Bigelow and Phillips's respective batteries believed that they had outright silenced Cabell's guns, but the day's events would soon prove otherwise. Around 6 p.m., the 3rd Corps' position in the Wheatfield was quickly deteriorating. John Bell Hood's division was slowly but surely advancing to the Wheatfield to the south, and Cadmus Wilcox's Alabamians were pressing hard against Joseph Carr's brigade on the Emmitsburg Road. To make matters worse, William Wooford's Georgia Brigade had cleared out all remaining Union troops from the Peach Orchard. It was around this time that Phillips noticed Patrick Hart's 15th New York Battery pulling their guns off the field. To Phillips, this was a clear sign of oncoming danger. To prepare for such a threat, Phillips ordered Lieutenant Frederick Lull, commander of his 2 rightmost guns, to turn his section's limbers around and be ready to move to a mound about 300 yards behind their current position. Around this time, as Phillips had predicted, McGilvery ordered Bigelow and Phillips to move their batteries back. When Phillips arrived on Trossel's Lane, today United States Avenue, he was irritated to find that Hart had taken 2 of his guns off the field with him. Disgruntled, but no less determined, Phillips continued on until he met with McGilvery on Cemetery Ridge, where he was putting together a line of cannons on high ground to meet the advancing Confederates. They would maintain this position for the rest of the day. On July 3rd, the 5th came under the Confederate bombardment prior to Pickett's charge, which, despite the large magnitude of guns dedicated to it, was mostly ineffectual. Around 1:30, they were ordered by Chief of Artillery Henry Hunt to return fire on the Confederate batteries. After the charge began, they fired on the Florida Brigade and a Confederate battery. In all, the 5th lost 7 men killed, 1 officer and 12 men wounded, and 59 of their horses were killed. They expended 700 total rounds of ammunition. Now let's move on to the monuments. The primary monument of Phillips Battery is a granite structure that was placed in 1885 by the state of Massachusetts and is located on the north side of Wheatfield Road. It was sculpted by Smith Granite Company in Westerly, Rhode Island, and stands 7 feet 3 inches tall. The monument is topped with a gable roof with an engraving of 2 crossed ramrods on the front side. The front of the monument has an engraving of a Maltese cross. The Maltese cross was the corps badge of the 5th Corps, which is an odd choice considering that they were attached to the artillery reserve during Gettysburg. However, they were attached to the 5th Corps for most of the war, so it's likely that the regiment wanted their monument to be more reflective of their entire service and not just their service at Gettysburg. Worth noting is that the monument actually used to be located on Hancock Avenue, about 3/4 of a mile northeast of where it stands presently. There are 3-inch ordnance rifles on either side of the monument, although the one on the right was built in 1866, and the one on the left was built in 1862. You can tell by looking at the text on each gun's muzzle. The second monument is located on the west side of Hancock Avenue and is a bronze position marker. It was placed in 1910 by the Park Service Commission of Gettysburg and lists what the battery did during the battle. The marker is also flanked by cannons on either side. The one on the left is an original from the war, but the one on the right is a reproduction, likely built by the Park Service. Now we'll cover their full regimental history. The 5th was recruited out of Linfield and Reedville, Massachusetts, and was mustered in on December 10, 1861. From December 25th to 27th, they marched to Washington, D.C., and were attached to Fitz-Porter's Division, Army of the Potomac. On March 18th, they were attached to the Division Artillery of the 1st Division, 3rd Corps, Army of the Potomac. As it turned out, their new unit assignment coincided with the beginning of their participation in the Peninsula Campaign. The engagements they were involved with during the campaign included Yorktown from April 3rd to May 4th, Hanover Courthouse on May 27th, and the 7 Days battles, of which they fought in Beaver Dam Creek or Mechanicsville on June 26th, Gaines Mill on June 27th, White Oak Swamp and Glendale on June 30th, and Malvern Hill on July 1st. After the campaign concluded, they moved to Harrison's Landing, Virginia, and remained there from July 2nd to August 16th. On the 16th, they began moving to Fort Monroe and then to Manassas. This movement would take 12 days. On August 30th, they were present for, but didn't fight in, the Second Battle of Bull Run. After Second Bull Run, they were assigned to the defenses of Washington and would remain there until October 8th. On October 9th, they began a 3-week-long assignment to Sharpsburg, Maryland, during which they performed several reconnaissance missions to Smithfield, Maryland, as well as Kearneysville and Shepherdstown in present-day West Virginia. After their stint in Sharpsburg, they were moved to Warrenton and then Falmouth, Virginia. From December 11th through 15th, they fought in the Battle of Fredericksburg. They would also participate in General Ambrose Burnside's infamous Mud March in January 1863. The next 3 months were very uneventful for the 5th. When they did finally see their first action of the year, it would be at the Battle of Chancellorsville. In June, as part of General Hooker's reorganization of the Army of the Potomac, the 5th were transferred to the newly formed 1st Volunteer Brigade Artillery Reserve. From July 2nd through 3rd, they fought in the Battle of Gettysburg, during which they were combined with the 10th New York Independent Battery due to heavy casualties suffered at Chancellorsville. After Gettysburg, they were returned to the Artillery Brigade 5th Corps. From August to October, they spent their time at Beverly Ford and Culpeper Courthouse. They were present for the Bristow Campaign from October 9th through 22nd. They advanced to the Rappahannock from November 7th through 8th. They were also present for the Mine Run Campaign from November 27th through December 2nd. On December 6th, they were moved to Rappahannock Station. Much like that of 1863, the first 4 months of the 5th's new year of 1864 were quite routine in nature. Then, on May 3rd, the Overland Campaign began. During the campaign, the 5th fought in the battles of the Wilderness from May 5th through 7th, Spotsylvania Courthouse from May 8th through 21st, North Anna River from May 23rd to 26th, Totopotomoy from May 28th through 31st, and Cold Harbor from June 1st through 12th. On June 16th, the siege of Petersburg began, and the 5th was right there for the first assault on the Petersburg fortifications. They wouldn't see any action for nearly the next 2 months until August 18th, when they fought in the 3-day-long Battle of Globe Tavern. On October 3rd, all soldiers of the battery who chose not to re-enlist were mustered out of service. From October 27th through 28th, they fought in the Battle of Boydton Plank Road. From December 7th through 12th, they participated in Governor K. Warren's raid on Weldon Railroad to destroy miles of Confederate railroad lines. From February 5th through 7th of 1865, the 5th fought in the Battle of Hatcher's Run. On March 28th, the Appomattox Campaign began. On April 4th, they were moved to City Point, Virginia, where they spent the remainder of the war. From May 3rd through 13th, they marched to Washington, and on May 23rd, they marched in the Grand Review of the Armies. June 4th through 6th, they marched to Reedville, Massachusetts, and on June 12th, 1865, they finally mustered out of service. Throughout the war, they had suffered 1 officer and 18 men killed in action, and 11 men dead from disease. Anyways, that's all I have for you on this episode of Monuments Man. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And if there's anything I missed, please let me know in the comments. And with that, this is the Copperhead Historian, signing off.